I grew up with an older sister and 2 younger brothers. As a kid, my sister really loved cooking, and now she's an Episcopal priest. She used to bake bread, and now she magically transforms bread into the edible flesh of Christ. My 2 younger brothers both became lawyers. And that seems pretty natural to me because really all younger siblings are attorneys. They have to be, because nothing is fair when you're younger and smaller. He tripped me. He took my toy. He got a longer term than I did. Yes, I now plead guilty to all of these charges. I was a really crummy older brother. And now they make 10 times what I do. But they have to come up with really smart things to say. And I get hired to say stupid things. Someone asked me to do a sermon about justice, and I'm about to say something really stupid about it. I think that justice must be inborn, hardwired, written in the marrow of our bones. I think this because I now have children of my own, and kids are natural experts on the topic of justice. He got 2 scoops and I only got a scoop and a half. She got to sit in the front seat last time. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. You hear that so many times. I try not to be one of those parents who answer, yeah, life isn't fair. But it's hard. Especially hard because I want 2 scoops too. And as the official scooper, I get what's left after everybody else gets 2 scoops. Unless we're talking about a dog mess, and then I'm first in line. I asked one of my kids to take out the garbage. Why me? I did it last time. Always me. Ask him. Ask her. All right, fine. Then I'll make them do something too. You sweep the floor. You clear the table. Then it's fair and we can all be unhappy. Everybody's an expert on justice. But law is a whole different matter. Marriage has laws. But after 15 years, I still have no idea what they are. It's like if you watched 1,000 movies about the Civil War and then got deployed into the jungles of Vietnam. Whoa! What are the rules? Where are the lines of soldiers here? I'm in the jungle, in the dark. The other player in this game is flitting shadows and flashes of gunfire from nowhere. The unknowable darkness. And you can't just sit down and negotiate the rules. Because there's this language barrier. I made you this. I cooked you this. I bought you this. And she'll say, yeah, but remember 3 weeks ago when I asked if you liked the dress? Your eyelid twitched. Yeah, but then I said I liked it. Your eyelid twitched. I don't consider that to be admissible evidence or courtroom testimony. It's not on the transcript. Do you like the dress? Yes, I like it. That's all I see in the official record. Sometimes I wish my household had a written set of rules. But then I remember I'm a historian and a Bible scholar, and written laws are always a terrible mistake. Once you start writing them down, you can't stop. Laws beget other laws. They multiply. It's like you close the cover on a law book, it's dark in there, they mingle, and when you open the book again, 100 new laws have been born. What's up with that? I asked my college students, how many commandments are there in the Torah? 10, they tell me. No, those are just the basics. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, has 613 commandments. Thou shalt this, thou shalt not that. Why? Because a written law is a line in the sand. Thou shalt not cross this line. And then someone figures out, or they pay a lawyer to figure out, oh, well then I'll just step around it. No, wait, here are 2 more lines in the sand to block that. Oh, so I'll step around those. No, here are 4 more lines in the sand. 16 more. 256 more. Written laws multiply exponentially because someone can always find a loophole. Someone can always find a way around it, especially those who can hire the most expensive attorneys. The problem was writing down a law in the first place. Tribal cultures with oral traditions don't have this problem. When the only law is work for your share and don't be a jerk, everybody knows when you're breaking it. Once you start writing down laws, you keep having to write down more and more to close off all of the loopholes. Did God write all of those laws in the Torah? I don't know. If so, it doesn't seem to have been God's most brilliant creative day. The basic format is copied out of Hammurabi's Code, an ancient Babylonian document. And there's at least one case of straight plagiarism. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Hammurabi wrote that. Copying from Hammurabi's Code might have seemed all right at the time. An eye for an eye seems fair enough. But a closer look quickly reveals that this Babylonian law code was clearly of the elite, by the elite, and for the elite. It was designed by those with wealth and power in order to keep their wealth and power, while giving the impression of being impartial, maybe even divinely inspired. This is also the basis for American law. Not the 10 Commandments. I don't understand why some people think that we should have the 10 Commandments on courthouse property. Knowing the 10 Commandments won't help you with American law at all. Our courts only punish 3 of them: murder, theft, and perjury. And we only punish those crimes when they are combined with the greater crime of not being able to afford an expensive attorney. If our courts enforced the 10 Commandments, that would mean capital punishment for everyone except for a few Orthodox Jews. And I mean capital punishment in the Old Testament style, where they throw rocks at you until you are dead. If the 10 Commandments were the law of this land, worshiping Jesus would be illegal. It makes no sense for Christians to want the 10 Commandments anywhere near a courthouse. If they wanted something biblical, it should be the gospel story of Jesus protecting the adulteress from the death penalty by saying, "Let the one who is faultless cast the first stone." Let the one who is faultless cast the first stone. Except that wouldn't harmonize so well with the Christian agenda of remodeling the American court system as a torture device to punish women for having sex. American law is not biblical. It's more like the Code of Hammurabi. It's there to protect those with power and property from those who don't. And it was created to give the impression of being impartial. That might be a little bit abstract. Maybe we can understand it better with a case study. Here's a classic example. Early in his life, George Washington owned a full set of teeth. These had been a gift from God or nature or whatever. Teeth just grew out of his head like by magic. In his early 20s, he started losing his teeth, likely because he was not a good governor of his own mouth. And there's no legend of whatever, he chopped down the cherry tree and his father punched him in the mouth. Let's just say natural causes. By his mid-50s, George Washington had lost all of his teeth. That presented a real problem in terms of law. Nobody knocked his teeth out. There's no tooth for a tooth. But he was also a property owner, which included owning human beings, African slaves. And they had teeth, which made him the owner of their teeth. So by the laws of the land, George Washington owned the teeth that were growing in other people's heads. And he paid someone to transfer them, to pull teeth from the heads of his slaves and make him a set of dentures. It turns out that whole George Washington's wooden teeth thing is a myth, as if he carved dentures from the cherry tree that he chopped down. Obviously, this is a grisly and awful example to hear about, but it was legal because the law made him the rightful owner of those teeth. The slaves did not own the teeth, even though they grew in their own heads. George Washington did. And P.S., when people say, "Make America great again," this seems to be the period of greatness that they're talking about. No coincidence that MAGA hats are often worn by toothless people. I'm not saying this to gross you out or make George Washington look bad. He can do that on his own. I'm using it as a clear illustration of how U.S. law from the beginning has never been impartial. Never been of the people, by the people, for the people. It has always been rigged so that those with power and property can keep their power and property. And yet it's got this thin veneer of impartiality. American law pays lip service to fairness, but those lips might be hiding stolen teeth. Yes, I decided to go with that pun. It's not that funny, but it was way better than making the pun about indentured servitude. Bad puns. I call them uncle jokes, but uncles call them dad jokes. And bachelor uncles have a lot more time and energy to go around naming things than fathers do. I recently came across this question. When does a bad joke become a dad joke? When the punchline is apparent. Anyway, back to our case study. The transfer of these teeth was perfectly legal, but even a child can easily see that it was not justice. It was lawful, but it was also awful. That's not a pun. It just happens to rhyme. But I have a niece and a nephew who might find it really funny. And now we're going through a major cultural debate about whether George Washington should be considered a hero at all. Because he owned human slaves and chewed his food with their teeth. Also, the environmentalists want to tear down all of his statues because he chopped down that cherry tree. And never mind whether or not it was owned by his family, it was still a lousy thing to do. Our American system of law is really, really complex. Even children can easily see the injustices, but we keep telling them it's more complicated than that. Our system gets more complex every day. But it can generally be summed up in a single word: revenge. We wait until someone is greedy or desperate enough to do something awful, and then we punish them. That's our ideal. That's what our law code strives to achieve. There are some kinks in the system. Sometimes our law enforcers get impatient They can't wait till someone does something wrong. So they just punish someone for looking like they might do something wrong in the future. I'm not making light of this. It's a serious problem. How does this keep happening? That sometimes violent people sign up for this job that makes violence legal? I don't know. Maybe there was a misunderstanding when they joined the police force, chose a career in law enforcement. Maybe some people misinterpret that to mean it's a profession where you solve problems by force. Sacred law can be scary. Artificial law, the laws drafted by legislative committees. Artificial law is terrifying. But natural law is the dirtiest of the bunch. The sociopath, it's the most frightening. Because it doesn't just go after guilty individuals. Natural law will punish a whole species. Especially if the crime is, your species is too big. Like if lions make too many baby lions, some of them will starve because there will not be enough gazelles for them to eat. Or if the gazelles make too many baby gazelles, nature will make more lions to hunt them. And then when the gazelle population settles down, the lion population will stabilize. It won't punish, nature won't punish individual lions, individual gazelles. It'll just hack away at that species until it's in balance. If humans make too many cars and burn too much fuel, nature will hit us with tsunamis and floods. It won't target individual humans. It'll just wipe some humans out. It'll punish Puerto Rico for the crimes of the LA freeway. If humans make too many humans, nature will make a virus to hunt us. It won't target individual humans. It'll just hack away at us as a species. To make this even more frightening, political and economic laws can sometimes get in on it and funnel the brunt of natural law's punishment toward the most socioeconomically vulnerable humans, as we're seeing now. Natural law is punishing the human species with this virus, and the virus is pretty indiscriminate. But economic law is racist and keeps shoving minorities and single mothers into the front lines to bear the worst of nature's fury. That is doubly frightening. No species is too big to fail, and that includes us. In the Torah, in the whole Bible, God's very first commandment to the human race is, be fruitful and multiply. That's a commandment. It's a sacred law. That's why wackos fire guns at Planned Parenthood. They think they're vigilantes protecting the law of life. I think part of the reason people get so irrational about their sacred laws is the hope that it might protect us from natural law. Like, mommy's gone crazy, daddy, protect me. Can God protect us from nature? Rescue this prodigal species? Save us? Come down and forcefully make it on earth as it is in heaven? I don't know. I believe in God, but I believe in a God who is rational. And I know for some of us, the phrase rational God might be an oxymoron, but it's a matter of personal faith. I believe in a God who cooperates with nature, not a God who bullishly dominates it. Someone asked me to give a sermon about law and justice. I hope when they asked that they suspected they would get something like this. A bunch of my own thoughts with some idiotic puns mixed in. It's no secret. I'm the guy who gets hired to say stupid things. Will our legislative committees, in their endless meetings and debates, ever devise a perfect law code that brings true justice to the land? I have my doubts. If all of the sacred laws in history have failed to bring peace on earth, I doubt that state bureaucrats will ever formulate perfect justice. And neither church nor state has yet managed to overrule natural law. Even Donald Trump cannot veto a hurricane, and that man has got a lot of wind power in him. But on a much smaller scale, on a much more humble scale, I do have some faith in humanity. I believe in you. You. I believe each one of us still has that child inside who knows injustice when they see it, regardless of what the law says. We have that child inside. We know injustice when we see it. And that child says, that's not fair. Maybe we've even been conditioned when we hear that child's voice to say, yeah, life's not fair. Or, shh, it's more complicated than that. Well, right now, my inner child is saying, no. Justice is not that complicated. Maybe I should listen. This is a vast and fascinating topic, law and justice. And it seems fitting that I have to end with a confession. I don't have all of the answers. But if you really need an answer, I know a priest and 2 lawyers you can ask.